Welcome to this episode of Hampton Roads Business Live. My guest today is Jesse Parker, Operations Manager for U.S. Termite and Moisture Control in Chesapeake. How you doing, Jesse?
Doing great, Roy.
That's good. Let's talk about U.S. Termite and Moisture Control. From the name, I'm assuming you're in the pest control business. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you all do?
Right. Yeah, we're a locally owned full-service termite and pest control company. We're locally owned and serve all of the Tidewater area.
Okay, and that's the south side Tidewater area?
Primarily south side.
Primarily, okay. All right, and you do more than termites, though. I mean, you're all sorts of pests?
Yes, we handle everything except contract killing. We're known as the local neighborhood hitmen, but we handle all wood-destroying insects. We do real estate inspections. We do general pest control, which is an area of the business that handles everything from apartment buildings to residential homes, where we take care of the dreaded roaches, fleas, ticks, spiders, and so forth. We actually, for about a year and a half, have been doing bed bugs, and we're getting ready to venture out into the mosquito reduction field.
Okay, and now you also do rodent stuff? Okay,
A lot of rodent
so
control.
mice and things like that.
Right.
All right, so we're approaching, as we're recording this, we're coming into spring, summer time. So this is where I would assume you have an uptick in insect activity, and this is where you get more calls. And
Oh yeah, we're actually right now in the very beginning stages of termite swarmer season.
okay, can you explain that?
Well, termite, the termite insect is very similar to, like ants. They have a caste system where they have a king and queen and reproductives. And what the swarmers are, they're the teenagers being kicked out of the house, so to speak. It's time for them to go off and venture out on their own, and what will happen is they're kept inside the termite tubes in something called a swarm castle. And in a lot of cases, it's either inside of a wall or underneath the soil. And what happens, they'll travel through that tube to come out, and in some cases, they're coming out inside of windows or electrical outlets, sometimes attics. But what will happen, owner will be watching TV, doing some random task around the house, and next thing you know, they see hundreds, if not thousands, of these flying insects all around the house. And what that is, that's the winged alates or the termite teenagers leaving to try to get out of the house. And they normally will congregate around the windows because they don't know that there's glass there, and they're trying to get outside. And what they will do is they'll go outside, pair off, mate, and start their own colony.
Okay, so that's a good indication you got termites.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Only well-established colonies of 5 years or older will produce swarmers.
Okay. All right, so what are some other signs that you have termites?
Some of the signs could be if you have moisture staining in your ceiling or wall, you notice some discoloration. You can notice windows or doors not fitting properly. They gradually, as you open or close them, start not to fit properly, and you notice they may be dragging or maybe not fit properly. That's normally a sign of you've had an infestation for a considerable period of time, and they've done some structural damage inside the walls, and what's happening is the main supports aren't supporting the window frames and door frames anymore.
Oh, I see. Okay. And now, when you do a job, well, when you go out, someone calls you and you go out, is one price for residential and one price for commercial, or is every job a bit different depending upon what their needs are, or what do you do?
They're all pretty much different. We kind of refer to our pricing as being a la carte. It really kind of is depending on what the situation is. All houses aren't built on a cookie cutter scale, so every house is different. The type of construction is different. The size of the house is different, and a lot of things come into play as far as determining what it costs to actually control, because what you have to do is different to the structures.
Well, like for instance, let's say someone calls because they have some ants. All right, so they call and they get you and you treat the house. Mm-hmm. That treatment isn't just for ants, it's for roaches and
it
other
can
things.
be. It can be.
Yeah. Okay, all right. And bees is another thing that I know is, I saw that on your website. That's something else you handle.
Yeah, we do quite a bit of bee control. The majority of calls we get are normally either ground nesting or upper level nesting yellow jackets. And that's because a customer has either been stung or been chased. Yeah, they're
In the ground?
In the ground.
Yeah, I actually have been one of those people that have gotten stung and chased. So that hurts. They're a mean species.
They're very
when
aggressive.
They
Very
get, yeah,
aggressive.
very aggressive. Okay, all right. So let's talk about the other part of your name, moisture control, because that is a whole another side that I guess they're linked in some ways. Maybe you can explain that.
Well, that's half of the problem of living in tidewater because we're so wet, we're virtually at sea level, and moisture has a lot to do with the insect's habitat. And a lot of moisture situations are conducive to a number of insects. It has to do with their breeding and particularly other pests like rodents. If you have a moisture source inside of your home, whether it's in a crawl space or on the interior walls itself, when the insects or pests actually invade and get inside the structure, if they have food, a dwelling place, and a moisture source, they have no reason to leave. So that's when you have to call us in to come out and eradicate them.
Okay. So before we get into some of these particular questions here, let me ask you about bed bugs because you mentioned that. And bed bugs is in an upswing in this area?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Not that they're so much heavier just in the last couple years. We've had them here for 5, 6, maybe 7 years, but people are becoming more aware of them. And the more the public finds out about what the problem is, then they're less likely to be afraid of it. One of the things that we've been finding is when a customer has a particular problem, of course in the past they've dealt with a problem called scabies, and they've been dealing with lice for a good number of years. But because the amount of transient travel in and out from people from international travel, there's a number of ways to pick them up. Bed bugs are incredible hitchhikers, and they can easily go from person to person, site to site. And people were afraid that it was a sign of bad sanitation. They weren't good housekeepers, and it really isn't the case. Although that can help perpetuate the situation. Mm-hmm. But it's just a matter of being in the wrong place at the wrong time and rubbing up against the wrong person at the wrong time.
So they're also hard to get rid of.
Very hard to get rid of. They're very cryptic in nature. They don't like to be out in the open. They're very secretive. They will only come out in the later parts of the evening when activity is real low, primarily when you're in bed sleeping. You actually have to go through quite a bit of exhaustive work and inspection to actually find them. In some cases, it takes 2 men actually to go through a house. One of the problems we have in finding bed bugs is most customers want a cursory inspection. They want us to just come out, take a quick look and see if they have a problem. Well, a proper bed bug inspection can take 2, 3, possibly 4 hours, because you have to go through the entire house. Primarily, we will target the room where the owners of the house are telling us where they're noticing a problem. But we have to break the entire bed and bedstead down. We have to move the cabinets and the dressers and dresser drawers, sometimes cabinets and all over. We take it completely apart, flipping it over and looking at every little square inch that you have on the furniture. Plus, they can also be in the carpet edges and under the wall. So there's virtually nothing in the house that's immune to them.
Right. Okay. Well, that's interesting to know. I didn't have any idea was that involved. Okay. So I have a few questions here. Should I worry about the big black bees flying around my house? When we talked about bees, but we talked about yellow jackets. How about these?
Those are carpenter bees. They look very similar to a bumblebee. One of the neat things about carpenter bees is they're not very aggressive. They can bite and sting, they're very territorial and very curious. They will actually fly up and buzz around your face if you get too close to them. But I've been in attics with hundreds of them, and I've never been stung or bit. And the converse I have with bumblebees. They're very aggressive. Will light you up pretty quickly. But carpenter bees are considered a wood-destroying insect. That's something that's covered under the WDI, or wood-destroying insect report that you get for a real estate closing. They will normally attack your wooden fascia around the house, and particularly if you have wood siding. They don't feed off of it, but what she will do, she will bore into the wood, make an immediate right-angled turn, and it can be 5, 7, 8 inches long, and she builds little chambers where she lays eggs. And what will happen is they will, as the eggs hatch and they come out, the newborn bees actually come out in reverse form. But what happens is she will return to the same area repeatedly, season after season. But they are large, and they can do a considerable amount of structural damage if you have a heavy enough infestation. But primarily what gets people's attention is the damage is normally right where you can see it, and it's normally to your readily visible areas.
Okay, and I being that you know why they do what they do, how they do what they do, the cycles of what they do, and all this goes a long way in you being able to treat them effectively. And the treatments that you use, I know that you're dealing with people. They have kids, they have pets, of course they live in the house and all. So what precautions do you all take as far as what you use or how you treat? Or
Well, it really depends on the type of a house. For example, if it's a 2 or 3 story structure, the older type of farmhouse, then it's a more extensive treatment because you have to get up on ladders and get on roofs and sort of thing. A regular, what we refer to in the local area is a Great Bridge Ranch. That's a 1-story home. It's easy enough to get to, and normally it's just by the guttering or a soffit area. The larger houses, the more elaborate your house is, the more elaborate the problem can be. And sometimes we're using a large-scale liquid treatment to the structure for preventing it. In some cases, it's a small localized treatment where we're actually treating inside the emergence hole itself.
so is this something that you have to keep pets away from where you treat, or is this pet friendly? Or
Well, it can be pet friendly. The majority of the reasons why we have restrictions on what we can do with a particular product is not necessarily because it's dangerous to the homeowner, but that because we're in contact with it on a regular basis, and all the restrictions that are designed in the the MSDS sheets
Right.
and the labels are because it's restrictions for us to be careful
for
with
repeated exposure
Right,
over and over
repeated
and over?
exposure coming to that. One of the biggest reasons is just a hands-on reason why we don't want people and their pets in a way, because we have to work around them, we have to move around them,
Right.
and you're watching so many different things. So you want to make sure. Primarily, we're trying to control the pests, and secondarily, we're trying not to do any damage to the property.
Yeah, it's hard to look for bees when you've got your eye on the pit bull.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, all right. How? Yeah, you sound like you know about that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I have a question here. Should you be concerned about a musty smell in your house?
Absolutely.
I would assume you would be
Yep.
concerned.
But I'll be honest with you, and not to offend anyone that smokes. I believe that you've got the right to smoke if that's what you choose to do. But a lot of times, people that smoke, their sense of smell isn't quite as acute, and it can go through the house, and it might mask that. But people that notice a musty odor, that can be a sign that they have a moisture problem under the house.
Oh, I see.
It could be standing water, it could be leakage, it could be primarily, it could be an interior water leak. But in a lot of cases, if you're having standing water, that's something that can damage any termite preventative treatment that you've done in the past.
Right.
But it also can cause a number of problems. The water itself can cause damage to the structure. It can cause wood decay fungi to start growing. and that's actually a living organism that feeds off the nutrients of the lumber. So it's never a good thing to have leakage or to have standing water in a crawl space.
Right, okay. Well, that makes sense. What should people do if they have not had their home inspected for several years?
90% of the time, if not 98% of the time, I've been doing this for about 30 years.
Wow.
And 98% of the time, I would safely say that when a home hasn't been inspected for 3, 4, 5 years or better, there's a lot of things that can go on. And in a situation like that, it's unseen. It doesn't exist in their minds. In a lot of cases, over a period of years, time passes a lot more quickly than they think it does, and a lot of things can go on. Most of the time when I do an inspection in a situation like that, that's when we find our large-scale problems, where you've had a moisture condition, plumbing leakage, or a termite infestation for multiple years.
And by the time it shows up is a big deal.
Right, and in some cases, people still don't know that they have it. Most people on average will get their houses inspected once or twice a year. But I run across it quite often, particularly doing real estate inspections, where the people had it treated 10, 15 years ago, thought everything was fine. And they either go to refinance the house or they're selling it, and next thing you know, boom, they've got a $8, $9, $10, $12,000 problem that they weren't anticipating, and that eats up all their equity in the house. And that's never a good thing to have to deal with. It's
Right.
always better to find out what you're dealing with beforehand, so you got time to make some adjustments.
And that's through a termite inspection.
That's through a termite
And
inspection
that's what
by,
you
by
all
a
do
trained
that.
professional. Right.
Okay.
One of the things I wanted to add, I do remember inspecting, I can't remember the lady's name. She was one of those, the little silver-haired beauties. She was probably in her mid-70s, and she told me that she hadn't had her house inspected in over 25 years. And Lord, at that time, I'm thinking to myself, Lord, this is going to be the worst case scenario. How am I going to tell this little old lady what she's got to deal with? Unbeknown to me, I go into the house, do the full inspection, and I told the lady when I came out from under the house, I said, ma'am, I said, you've been living right. She did not have a problem. That's a 1 in a million situation.
All right, now let's think if they do have a problem. Let's say termite damage. Now, U.S. Termite and Moisture Control is uniquely equipped to handle that. So you don't just go out and say, yep, you got termite damage. I mean, you can actually fix the termite damage.
Absolutely. We are actually a Class A contractor and builder. We are also a Cape Construction Company. We started originally as a construction company, and we were having trouble finding reputable companies to do our pre-construction treatment. So we started getting our own training, getting our own experience in that realm, and it turned into being a very lucrative part of the business also, because it grew on its own.
Right. Okay. So there is a tremendous number of pest control companies in Hampton Roads. You see trucks all over the place, cars. I've seen your cars, and all. What sets U.S. Termite apart in your mind?
Well, in my mind, I've worked for probably 4 other firms in my 30 years, and each time I step up to move to another company, it's for a step up. It's to improve my situation. And when I got involved with U.S. Termite and Moisture Control, the owner, Mike Pelletier, and I were members of the Tidewater Pest Control Association, and we had some business dealings together. And when the situation arose that it was time for me to depart from the other firm, Mike and I got together and we discussed the situation, and this was the only company I would have gone to, because as far as that point, if he hadn't been the professional and treated his customers, because he had a tremendous reputation, if it hadn't been for that, I would have probably gotten out of the business and went to another field. But I had too many years invested in it, and I love the business. But he has such a professional persona. He treats his employees like family. We refer to ourselves as a family company.
Right.
We don't pay our people on commissions. We do have bonuses for doing good jobs and going above and beyond, the call of duty, but we do what we do because of the way people are supposed to be treated. Now, of course, everyone makes mistakes. You forget things and there are things, but we make, whenever we make a mistake, we make it right. And it's just such a professional environment from the time we walk in the door to the time we leave.
Right. So you're very, very high on customer
Absolutely,
service.
absolutely.
Right. And it helps if you have happy employees as far as being able to work there if you like what you're doing, and you said you do. So
Absolutely.
that's good. Is there anything we haven't covered that you wanted to talk about?
Only that one of the things I've noticed, I've been on the board of directors of the Virginia Pest Management Association. I'm a two-time past president of the Tidewater Pest Control Association, and both of those have a very strong customer-client relationship building program. And we have a grievance situations through both of the associations. And one of the things we've noticed, primarily because of real estate problems, people buying and selling homes and somebody inspecting a house and not doing a good job for them, the buyer of the house moves in and finds out that the report they got isn't actually factual, and they find there were a lot of problems that should have been reported that weren't. We found that the level of professionalism can really vary. I use the term that you can't swing a dead cat without hitting an exterminator. And it's almost at a point that you can't drive on the road, and you can't drive anywhere in Tidewater in one day and not see at least 5 pest control companies. So there are a lot of people out there, but just because the area is saturated doesn't mean that they're all good companies. Not to say that it's just in the pest control, it's like that in all businesses, but it all basically boils down to the credibility and the care that the company puts into their business. For example, we're a very high profile company. For example, I don't know if I'm going to drop a name here, but Ray Connor is one of our customers. Retired chief of police of the Chesapeake is one of our customers. We have a lot of high profile customers. And we live right here in the Great Bridge, Chesapeake area, and there's a lot that goes on here, and we're seeing after hours also. So that's something else that would behoove us to be a good and reputable person.
And you are continuing education classes and things like that to keep up on it. So it's not just you got a jug of stuff and you're just going to the house.
Oh no, it's really amazing. 10 years ago, you could get a $500 what we call a beater, a used up pickup truck, B&G sprayer, and you pay $35 to get your license and you're in pest control. That's not like that today. This is a very advanced field, and many entomologists are actually getting into the pest control field today. They find it's more lucrative than speaking.
Well, that's it certainly has opened my eyes to a few things that I didn't know, and I think that I think that you've opened up some areas that certainly I was unaware of. So hopefully this has been an education for our viewers. And is there anything else that you wanted to say?
Well, one of the things that I try to instill, and Mike and I try to instill in our employees is, during your day-to-day activities, you get tired and worn out, and there's drudgery involved in any type of work. But I try to let them know to remember that we're serving the public and we're protecting people's homes, and we're trying to keep them from getting diseases and illnesses. German roaches carry approximately 21 different diseases. So there's a vital service that we're providing to the public, and we want to be the best at doing what we do.
Right. Well, that's certainly a good rule to be following and trying to live up to. So I thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me.
And that's Jesse Parker, Operations Manager, U.S. Termite and Moisture Control. The contact information is at the bottom of the page. So if you have a problem, think you have a problem, or not sure, would like to get your house checked out with an inspection, good company to call.
And Roy, I might add too, if you don't have a problem, we'll tell you that too.
Yep, that's great. All right, so thank you for coming by.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
All right.